I remember the way the grass looked smaller when he said it, like the yard had already decided to leave me. Dad didn't ask. The realtor didn't blink. My brother-in-law laughed, because laughter is easy when you think you've already won. That night, I stood in the dark kitchen and practiced silence. I learned early that rage makes noise, control makes plans. I wasn't always the extra. There was a time this place was proof. Proof that I had built something alone. Proof that I belonged. Dad used to call it your future. My sister used to say she was proud. My brother-in-law shook my hand the day I closed and said, "Family sticks together." That sentence aged badly. I met him when he had nothing but charm and opinions. He learned my routines, my deadlines, my weak spots. He watched me rebuild after the divorce. My wife gone, my nights long, my house the only thing that didn't flinch when I walked in. He watched and he learned. The twins arrived, and with them came urgency, needs, justifications. My sister's voice softened, Dad's hardened. The house stopped being mine and started being the solution. I noticed the changes before the verdict. Mail redirected, appraisals scheduled without me, a trust document drafted for efficiency. My name still on the deed, but their hands on the steering wheel. They spoke in plural now. We think, we decided. I was the only one still speaking singular. The proof came quietly. A forwarded email Dad forgot to delete. A line item buried in a refinance proposal. The buyer wasn't a buyer. It was a shell. My brother-in-law's shell. The plan wasn't to sell. It was to move me, to reduce me, to keep the asset in the family while I slept above the garage like a favor they'd done me. I didn't confront them. I cataloged dates, signatures, the trust language that contradicted state law, the appraisal that undervalued the lot but praised the development potential. I hired a lawyer who liked silence as much as I did. We spoke in bullet points. I rerouted my paycheck to an account they didn't know existed. I filed a notice of occupancy that froze transfers without my consent. I requested an audit of the trust. Routine, neutral, devastating. I scheduled a zoning review. Turns out the bigger yard required a variance they didn't have and couldn't get without my signature. I let them keep laughing. The day of the open house, I stood in the doorway and welcomed strangers into my home. I watched my brother-in-law sell a dream he didn't own. I watched Dad beam. I waited. When the city inspector arrived, I offered coffee. When the bank called, I answered. When the attorney asked who had authorized the trust amendments, I forwarded the thread. We met again in the backyard. Same grass, bigger shadows. Dad started to speak. I finished for him. "You can't list it," I said. "You can't transfer it. You can't touch it." My brother-in-law tried humor. It fell flat. The realtor checked her phone. My sister cried the way people do when consequences introduce themselves. I laid it out slowly. The illegal amendments, the shell, the attempted constructive eviction, the penalties, the liens, the little detail where attempting to remove me triggered a buyout clause at market value, my market value, payable immediately. They looked at him, then the man who laughed, the man who had taken my place at the table and called it practical. He opened his mouth. I raised a finger. I'm not done. I offered terms, clean, legal, final. They'd transfer the trust back to neutral. Dad would apologize on paper. My brother-in-law would sign an affidavit admitting authorship of the plan. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue damages. In exchange, I wouldn't call the bank again. The yard felt enormous. He signed. His hand shook. Dad didn't look at me. My sister whispered my name like it might still work. Later, alone, I walked the perimeter and counted my steps. Relief isn't loud. It doesn't clap. It exhales. I didn't take the house to punish them. I kept it to remember who I was before they tried to shrink me. I rented the garage apartment to a stranger and framed the lease. I planted a tree where the sign had been. Some nights I replay the laugh. It sounds different now, smaller, like grass after frost. Justice doesn't always knock. Sometimes it waits in the kitchen, practices silence, and speaks when everyone else is done laughing.